And one thing, JP, that's normally typical for August is you're starting to see the Atlantic hurricane season be a little more active. And today, or yesterday, in fact, we had our first hurricane so far in the 2025 season. Yesterday, just before about 9 or 10 a.m., it was just a tropical storm. It was Tropical Storm Erin. But then as the day progressed, and even today, it is now a Category 5 hurricane with winds at about 160-mile-per-hour winds. It is moving just to the north of the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, and even just to the north of Puerto Rico. And that's good because it's not expected to make landfall for them. Now, it is going to go just to the east of the East Coast and just to the west of Bermuda. But this is the first named hurricane. Normally this year, we at least see statistically a named hurricane earlier on, but this was Erin. The next one will be Ferdinand and then Gabrielle, and we still have a ways to go. I mean, August and September is peak hurricane season for the Atlantic season, so we'll keep you posted. But for us, we're not expecting any hurricanes. We're not expecting any tropical development anytime soon for San Antonio, but we are expecting more rain. So like I mentioned earlier, we did see some spotty showers earlier today, but the chances continue as we head throughout the rest of your evening. And then Sunday, we're starting to dry out, but the rain chances return next week. So throughout the next few hours, here's your future cast. We're still expecting some partly cloudy skies, but overnight, right before and right after sunset, we're talking about the 8 p.m. to even 10 p.m. time frame. We're expecting a few more showers and thunderstorms to start to spark, and that's partly due to there's still some instability, and we get that daytime heating and that daytime instability from those showers and thunderstorms that you normally see throughout the day, and that's going to spark the chances of some showers and thunderstorms later this evening. But the good news is that sun's really going to start to set. They're going to lose the steam, and we're going to start to see the rain chances really diminish. And by tomorrow morning, we're just left with that cloud coverage, maybe an isolated shower closer to Eagle Pass and the Rio Grande, but otherwise the greater rain chances really return later in the week. But one thing for us tomorrow is it's going to be feeling warm. Although we're not seeing as much rain chances, we're still going to be feeling that humidity. So it's going to be feeling like 102 in some areas, but even in San Antonio or even other areas, we can feel like we're 105 to even 108 at times. So it's still going to have our air temperature be 100 degrees, but you're going to want to stay hydrated, find some shade when you can. And that's tomorrow. Monday, we're starting to see the temperature still on the warmer side, but the rain chances return to the forecast. Over the next 7 days, we're starting to see a lot more tropical moisture and just Gulf moisture in general make its way into areas of South Texas. That's why in San Antonio, we do have that chance for maybe half an inch to isolated inch or two, but just to the east as you get closer to Houston or even areas near Galveston or Louisiana, that's where you're starting to see a few more inches of accumulation, because take a look at the daily rain chances we can see in San Antonio. 20% starting on Monday. That's going to be Monday night into Tuesday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and even Friday, the rain chances start to increase. We start to see our air temperature start to decrease because of the rain chances and the cloud coverage. So we'll continue to keep you posted, especially because as we get closer to the multi-days of rain, we're going to see a little bit more of our high-resolution weather models getting closer and closer. So we'll keep you posted, but not everyone's going to see the rain tonight. And if you don't worry, we have plentiful more chances.
Breaking news. Hurricane Erin rapidly intensifying into a rare Category 5 hurricane. The powerful storm is in open waters, but bringing strong wind and waves to Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. Let's get straight to meteorologist Jeff Benson. I mean, you've been tracking this. I mean, in just 30 minutes, it exploded once again.
It's staggering, Morgan. I mean, you think about this. First and foremost, we went 24 hours from becoming a hurricane to turning into a Category 5 hurricane. And it was about 18 hours, late last night, it was still a 1, or about 8 p.m. last night. Here we are noontime, and it is a category 5. So this is the definition, textbook, rapid intensification, tropical storm watch up for the St. Martin area. Again, the only good news really about this storm is that the path that it is projected to take is going to keep it away from any direct landfalls. But again, moving towards Puerto Rico, they're getting the wind and wave action right now. Soon they're going to get the rain action, flood watch in effect, up to 6 inches, maybe even more than that of rainfall. And again, 160-mile-per-hour wind. So we were right on the threshold last hour at 155. All it needed was a slight bump, and boy, did it get it. Now, I love this graphic here. We're talking about how they figured this out in the time in which they did. We had a recon flight taken off from the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's Puerto Rico there, so not that far away. Here's the eye of Erin, and boy, is it a well-defined eye here. Has been since about, say, midnight or so. So the recon flight went right over that eye, making a couple of passes here, measuring a surface pressure of 960 millibars, which is very low and likely continuing to drop. And the wind speed here, again, they're a little bit higher up, so this could be a little inflated from what we're seeing at the surface level, but 200-mile-per-hour winds is what they recorded. So likely to become, stay a 5 as it approaches, getting close to the Bahamas and the the Turks and Caicos here. Maybe it weakens slightly into a 4, but still 150-mile-per-hour winds. 140 by Tuesday morning, continuing to weaken as it makes that pass and hook just to the north of Bermuda here. Still, even though a category 2 projected by Wednesday into Thursday, 110-mile-per-hour winds. And look how close this is to the coastline here, which I'll talk about in a second. All being steered because of the Bermuda high weakening a little bit, and also this big upper level low that we have over the continental United States, helping to steer that on out of here, which again is good news. But look at these wave heights here as we go from Jacksonville up to the coastal Carolina region, Cape Hatteras, 8 to 12 feet. Swells here. Wouldn't be surprised to see maybe even a little bit higher than that. Again, if you're going out and doing any boating or even thinking of it, absolutely a bad idea. 6 to 8 for Long Island up towards Nantucket. Parts of, say, Block Island into South County and Rhode Island here could also be seeing those incredible waves. We're going to transition to some weather back here domestically. We do have a flash flood threat for parts of the upper Midwest into the northern portion of the plains of the Dakotas here. We could see some downpours of 1 to 3 inches per hour that could amount to over a half foot of rain. So we're talking about flooding down in Puerto Rico, Morgan, and then here at home as well. But I mean, of course, the big story that we'll continue to bring you the latest on is Erin and exploding into that category 5.
Absolutely. An incredibly powerful storm. Jeff, thank you so much.
Taking a live look via EarthCam here of Puerto Rico, where you can see it is very, very rainy. And a lot of people following the instructions, heeding the warnings there and staying away from the beach. Looks like nobody in that live image, again, coming in out of Puerto Rico there via EarthCam. We, of course, are talking all about Hurricane Erin, not only the first hurricane of the Atlantic season, but also the first major hurricane. Just yesterday, we saw it reach that Category 5 status, and I do want to bring in meteorologist Michael Estime over at Fox Weather to talk more about the current track and what to expect next. Good morning, Michael.
Josh, listen, my friend, always great to see you. Wish we could talk on terms that weren't so, dangerous, but let me jump into it, Josh, because you nailed it right off the top. This is not just our first hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season, but it is the first major hurricane. That's a Category 3 hurricane or stronger. And Josh, just to put it into perspective for you, we went from what was a little kitten to a big ferocious tiger in literally 24 hours. I'm going to show you that in just a second. Let me give you a quick little update. As of 10:30, we are expecting another update from the National Hurricane Center in about 30 minutes. So you want to make sure that you stick with us here, not just on Fox Live, but also on Fox Weather. Current advisory as of 8 o'clock this morning, winds at 125 miles per hour. That a bona fide Category 3 hurricane. And as you mentioned when we showed you that camera off the top, listen, Puerto Rico is getting super soaked with rain. Here's what it looked like. This was yesterday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, 75 mile per hour winds, and we ramped those winds up by nearly 90 to 95 miles per hour in just 24 hours. We literally call that, quote, rapid intensification. That, though, is when you see winds increase by 35 miles per hour in 24 hours. This was 90 plus miles per hour in 24 hours. So almost a super rapid intensification is what we're calling it. Josh, here's what things look like right now. Here's the island of Puerto Rico, as you know, has just flash flood warnings for the island of Puerto Rico. This is south of San Juan, so south of the capital city, where it has been raining cats and dogs. Unfortunately, in Puerto Rico, if you've not been to Puerto Rico, number one, beautiful, beautiful island to go to. However, there's a lot of mountains. And those mountains, when you start to see just a ton of rain, can lead to landslides, rock slides, and mudslides. We haven't heard of any reports of that just yet, but that is in the cards. We then jump over to St. Thomas. I know that many of you have perhaps taken a wonderful cruise to St. Thomas, some of the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, great places to go to. Not now, though. Here's where St. Thomas is. This is where the airport is. And again, flights in and out of the airport certainly going to be canceled or delayed at least through today, just given the amount of rain and wind that they're seeing, not just there, but also on St. John Island as well. Bigger picture looks like this. Here's where the Dominican Republic is at. A lot of folks vacation to the eastern end of the island. We call it Punta Cana, beautiful resort destination. Unfortunately, they are also fighting through the rain, showers, and storms. The good news, though, in Punta Cana, in the Dominican Republic, is the fact that that rain is going to be a lot less intense. The rain, or the wind rather, also less intense. So that's the good news there. We'll set things into motion for you through not just the day today, but into tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. And look at Puerto Rico, look at St. Thomas, St. Croix, right? U.S. and British Virgin Islands still undergoing more rain. So that rain's going to be with us for for at least the next, say, 24 to 36 hours. Next question, how much rain are we talking, right? Well, you'll note that our forecast models on the southern end of the island, not just of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but also throughout Puerto Rico, that's at least on the low end, another 3 to as much as 8 inches of rain. Isolated spots could pick up even more than that. Some spots, by the way, have already seen over 9 inches of rain, with perhaps a little bit more on the way. Rain, flooding is going to be an issue. Let's talk about the winds real quick. Currently, Category 3 hurricane, as we mentioned before, one of our buoys right now in the middle of the Atlantic, registering wind gusts over 45 miles per hour. But the winds are going to push all that water right up along the beaches, especially on the southern tips of the island. So here's where we are in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Here we are in Puerto Rico. The southern base of the island, where that wind is getting really just pushed up against, that's going to be where we see the worst rip currents. Those could be life-threatening, that undertow that literally can drag you out to sea. That's going to be a big issue through the day today and tomorrow. And I want to point this out, Josh, just for a quick second, is the fact that we're actually expecting for Erin to strengthen. It is once again moving into an area where the water's really nice and warm. It's juicy, if you will. The atmosphere has a lot of moisture to work with and play with. So we're actually expecting it to strengthen. The good news is, out of all of this, and feel free to say hallelujah if you want, is the fact that this is going to miss any direct land impacts. Let me repeat that. We are not expecting and not forecasting a landfalling hurricane. Hallelujah. Because this could have been absolutely catastrophic, if not devastating, if that were the case. We're expecting this to be well off the eastern seaboard of the United States. So friends and family in Florida, if you're joining us from the Space Coast, Kennedy Space Center area, up toward the first coast, toward Jacksonville Beach, this is not going to be a huge impact for you. Secondary impacts, yeah, you'll see the big surf, the big waves, right? Maybe a couple of showers and a few more, a couple of thunderstorms, but nothing that's going to be crazy or that's going to slow down your midweek. That happens by Wednesday. And then note that we're expecting Bermuda. This is not expected to make a direct impact on Bermuda either. So any cruise plans that you might have out that way, again, good news is this should stay at bay. Now, the wind field is going to expand as this moves into cooler water. It's interesting. You think about like a ballerina spinning around in a circle, right? When the ballerina brings her arms together like this, she spins really quickly, but then as she opens up her arms, right, she slows down. That's what's going to happen with this hurricane. It's going to slow down, but its wind field is going to expand by 600 miles or so. What that means is for friends and family along the Virginia Beach area toward the Cape, this is Cape Hatteras, in the Carolinas, Wilmington, it means that you're going to be fighting through some pretty significant winds by the time we get to Wednesday and then into Thursday. We're talking winds over 40 to 50 miles per hour. So yeah, if you were thinking about making it a beach day, not with 50-mile-per-hour winds, you're going to get a free microdermabrasion is what you'll get if you're laying on the beach with all that sand blowing in your face by Wednesday, Thursday in parts of the Carolinas, that's for sure. Wave heights, this could be significant too. Big old waves, not just through parts of the Bahamas. Here's where the Bahamas are by tomorrow. But as we head toward Cape Hatteras, now if there's one little bit of good news, I did hear, and some of our viewers have shared with us that in Virginia Beach, there is a big surfing competition that's taking place. So surfers are probably going to enjoy that. But listen, if you're not a surfer, stay out of the water. Because when we're talking about wave heights between 6 to 9, perhaps even upwards of 12 feet, that can be absolutely dangerous, if not life-threatening. I don't want you taking the kids to the beach this weekend, that's for sure. Stick with the pool. So again, a little recap on what Thursday should begin to look like in terms of our waves. And then, Josh, I'm going to leave you with this, because the other thing that I don't want us to forget is the fact that we're in the middle of hurricane season. The height of hurricane season is just 24 days away on September the 10th. And this is what I'm actually almost more concerned about, is the fact that we have a disturbance. You can see it right here, cluster of showers and thunderstorms. It's expected in the next couple of days to move into this region, gain strength, gain momentum, and gain more energy. This is the system where some of our forecast models are suggesting that we could see it, and it's going to be highlighted right here. We could see this system develop into a little something. I won't call it a tropical storm or hurricane just yet, but it could develop into one. And then perhaps our long-term forecast models are suggesting that it could move into and across the Lesser Antilles into what we call the Caribbean Sea. So south of Puerto Rico, south of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, perhaps move into Cuba, and then into the Gulf of America. That is what we're keeping our eyes on in the next week. So you'll want to make sure that you hone in with us on Fox Weather for that, because that, to me, Josh, could be actually more significant, more dangerous to the United States mainland than what we're seeing with Hurricane Erin. Josh, my last graphic, I'll leave you with this, is the fact that we still have 84% of hurricane season just yet. I know we got a big bad storm out there right now, but we are nowhere even close to being done with hurricane season. So friends in Florida, along the Georgia coastline, Carolina coastline, if you've not gotten your hurricane preparedness kits ready and set, this is an absolute must do in, say, the next weekish or so, just to be safe and free from harm. Josh, it's something that we're going to be watching very carefully, but again, just to kind of wrap things up, thank goodness Erin is not expected to make a direct landfall on any piece of land.
Yeah, Michael, we're definitely grateful for that. I know they're seeing the impacts, as you mentioned, around the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, they're seeing it, but good news that it's not going to make that direct impact. However, we're going to pay attention to that system that you were just pointing out, because we are getting to the height of hurricane season. And a lot of people have said, well, it's been fairly calm, but overall, I mean, we expect to see storms kind of blow up during this time, not necessarily earlier.
Yeah, and Josh, I'll point it out right here. Hurricane season actually started on June the 1st. That was this point here on the map. And what you're looking at is when we start to see that increase in tropical activity. Yeah, this is where we are right now. Here's where we started. You don't see a whole lot. Things right now, though, mid-August, this is when we start to see the big giant spike. And Josh, to your point, here's the actual point right here, September the 10th, September the 11th. That's the climatological peak of hurricane season. We're still 24 days away from that. So we're expecting storms to ramp up. This is a normal cycle that we see every year. What's just a little, I would say, odd or which is a little odd is the fact that we saw a storm, Erin, rapidly intensify twice what we typically define as rapid intensification at this point. So I think this could set the stage, unfortunately, for what could be a really hyperactive hurricane season.
That is not what anyone wants to hear. Michael Estimate, thank you so much. Meteorologist there with Fox Weather. And of course, we're going to stay in touch here as we track that other system alongside our friends there at Fox Weather. I'm also going to steal every analogy that you used during that forecast. So thank you for that. Have a good rest of your day.
Absolutely, Josh. Yeah, you too. We'll see you soon.
All right, and I do want to pop this up on your screen once again, that live look that we do have over Puerto Rico. You can see the camera shaking all over the place and those trees there in the distance. Also rain almost covering the camera. We saw yesterday you could barely see anything from that camera as it does continue to move around. We will continue to track Hurricane Erin as it does slam the Caribbean. Now, again, as Michael mentioned, we expect another update to come in around the 11 o'clock hour. We'll keep you posted right here on Live Now from Fox. And don't forget, you can stream Fox Weather everywhere that you stream Live Now from Fox. It's always on, always free at foxweather.tv. And don't forget to download the Fox Weather app. Head to the App Store, Google Play Store, and hit that download button.
We continue to try.
Big story.
Good morning. This is Morning Sky. I'm your host, Sky. What a world we live in. The late great God damn, what's his name? Oh God. Dick Gregory. Late great Dick Gregory once said that hurricanes spawn from Africa because it's the black woman's rage going against the oppressed, going for the oppressed, going against the people that oppress them, and she's angry and she's terrifying and she's serious and she can cause major damage. And that's Dick Gregory. He was mystified. That's a mystical kind of connotation, but it's an interesting one. I see you, Green Jarrell. Is this your first time in here? Salute to you, sir. So it's very mystical. It's very faith based, but it's just like that, story time kind of thing. Like if you made that into a novel or even a short story or a film, that would probably be interesting to think about. But really, in actuality, in science, it means that the waters are extremely warm. And when the climate conditions are such that, the warm waters, can form just off the coast of Africa, and they start to spin, and it creates a tropical storm, and then it's upgraded to a hurricane. It can go up to all the way to a hurricane, a stage 5 hurricane. That's the strongest I'm pretty sure of. So that is that's the main news story of the day is Hurricane Erin. Hurricane Erin in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a special place. It's where Dr. Jerome Brook lives. You might want to look him up. You definitely get his numbers up, get his subscribers up. I type his YouTube post and let me see. Here's, just search for this on YouTube. Search for Your Own Brooks show. He lives in Puerto Rico. He knows something more than most people do. Has something to do with taxes. He's pretty well off. He's upper class. He's either lower upper class or upper middle class. He's somewhere around there. He's not extraordinarily wealthy, according, allegedly. I don't know his financial situation, but he's not doing too bad for himself. Let's say that. Black Cuddy says, Hurricane Sky report. Keep your eyes on the storm. You're the first except for national news. I appreciate that, Black Cuddy. Salute to you, sir. Salute to you. He ain't trapping. What do you mean he ain't trapping? What is that supposed to mean? Right with me? What are you talking about? He ain't trapping. What is I don't even know what. I know what trapping means. I think, to get to hustle, to grind. You're in the trap house bagging up the work. That's what I understand is trapping. But so I'm gonna situate myself here a bit. Oh my God. Whatever. Did you mean he ain't tripping, or do you mean what you said? He ain't trapping. I'm not sure. Right with me. You gotta explain yourself a little bit there. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed at that fact that there's so much going on in the world. And I was just thinking, this is a thought to myself. What if Hurricane Katrina happened and then September 11th happened in the same year, and then the financial meltdown happened all in the same year? What would have done? What would the American economy been like? What would have happened? I just wonder certain things like that sometimes. It's just rolling around in my mind, it occurred, But the hurricanes, and they're serious. I mean, like they said, they're not making landfall. None of the Erin is not making landfall. Your new name is Hurricane Sky. I don't know about that, Black Cuddy. I'm gonna keep just the sky part. I don't know about the hurricane part. But that I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate it. But yeah, so it's not gonna make landfall. It's just gonna make riptides and larger scale waves. That's pretty much all that's gonna happen. I think that's the reality of it. So, given the fact that there are multiple tropical storms that could follow Erin, we have to be prepared for those, and then they have to have the design right. I just watched a documentary on Hurricane Katrina. It wasn't the hurricane necessarily. It was blamed for it. It was like, okay, it was like the impetus. It was like the starting point. But the real criminal in all this were the levees. The levees broke, and that's when everything went to hell. All the water just gushed in, and people were on their rooftops. Like, it's just horrific, and it could happen again because they said that they were rebuilding the levees, and to this day, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, the levees that are there in place, they're not going to hold up as well either. They're just praying to Jesus. There is no God, or there is no Jesus, in a mystical sense. they're just hoping and wishing and praying that, no other hurricane comes, because it's going to be Hurricane Katrina Part 2. It's going to be another name for the hurricane, but it's going to show that it's going to be an issue, a problem again. I'm going to go to another video. Let me see here. Here we go.
That we're watching, of course, is Hurricane Erin. This is a major Category 4 hurricane with 130-mile-per-hour winds. It is now moving away from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and it is east of the Turks and Caicos. Also, the southeastern Bahamas are under tropical storm warnings with this. Central Bahamas have a tropical storm watch. This is going to stay over land. It is not going to move over any land areas, but it's a large storm. So that wind field is broad. They'll get tropical storm force winds, and they will certainly have some rain impacts through parts of the Bahamas and also the Turks and Caicos. And then as it takes that turn to the north, it is going to pass between Bermuda and the eastern seaboard. So again, not impacting any land areas. This is going to pass more than 350 miles off our coastline as we go into Thursday night and early Friday morning. So the biggest impacts felt on the eastern seaboard will likely be out through the outer banks of North Carolina, kind of sticking out closer to this, where there could be tropical storm force winds at the outer banks. In addition to that, there'll be some coastal erosion and coastal flooding as well. For us, we may see some wind gusts over 30 miles per hour on the Cape and the islands as we get into Thursday, and that will be the biggest impacts outside of what's happening in the ocean. Huge waves and a swell coming off this are going to mean rough surf and a rip current risk up and down the eastern seaboard. For us, that will start later tomorrow, and it will continue through Friday with, I think, the highest risk for rip currents likely coming in on Thursday. Now, behind Erin, there is another tropical wave that the Hurricane Center is eyeing. This one actually has a 50% chance of developing over the course of the next several days. The next name on the list is the F-name storm, which is Fernan, and it may actually travel a similar path to what Erin did. So we'll be keeping an eye on the tropics here as we get closer to the month of September.
Time now for your tropical update. I'm ABC 13 meteorologist Alita Laresca. We've got a new tropical wave to watch, but before we talk about that, let's talk about Hurricane Erin, a Category 4 hurricane with some strengthening still expected. Maximum sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. It's already made its way to a Category 5 hurricane. It's weakened a little bit and expected to strengthen as it continues toward the west-northwest. Tropical storm warnings in place for the Turks and Caicos, parts of the Bahamian island chain there. It would slowly make a turn to the north and east, but not until later on this week as a cold front starts to slide in toward the east coast. Meanwhile, tropical wave that's just moved off the coast of Africa has a 50% probability of tropical depression or a named storm as we continue through the week. Later this week, definitely the wave to watch as we may be watching it as it pushes toward the Eastern Caribbean. Now, as we get into deeper in August, you can see the couple of tracks that this system could make. It could continue to follow the path of Erin and make its way toward the Bahamas here and then make a turn toward the East Coast, or it could move into the Eastern Gulf. If it develops something further south over the Southern Caribbean, it has a better chance of moving into the Northwest Caribbean and into the Gulf. So still a lot of uncertainty to what this system is going to do. So we'll continue to watch it through the weekend and into early next week. Should it get a name, the next name on the list would be Fernan. That's a look at your tropical update for now. Thanks for watching.
The drenching rain from over the weekend as Erin exploded into a monster Category 5 hurricane, lashing the Caribbean islands with heavy rain and wind. Now, right now, Erin remains a strong Category 4. That latest update from the National Hurricane Center, the intermediate 8 a.m. advisory. It is still just to the east of the Bahamas, with Turks and Caicos under some of the threats of those outer bands.
And although Erin's core, the most intense part of a hurricane, is going to remain hundreds of miles away from the U.S. mainland, Erin will deliver a glancing blow to the eastern seaboard. Mandatory evacuations have been issued for parts of North Carolina's Outer Banks. High surf and rip current alerts are also in effect for much of the week.
And just behind Erin, I know it's hard to think beyond that, but already the National Hurricane Center is, and we've got that area to watch from the NHC. Odds are increasing for potential tropical development within the next 7 days. We'll have more on that.
50-50 shot at this point. We do have team coverage all week along the East Coast as Erin gets uncomfortably close to the U.S. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel is live on the Outer Banks of North Carolina in Kitty Hawk. But we want to begin this morning with analysis from Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross. Brian, good morning to you. Erin undergoing yesterday that eye wall replacement cycle after peaking as a Cat 5 hurricane this weekend. Remarkable. And it looks like this morning, Erin's not done strengthening.
No, it is indeed strengthening. We can see the pressure is dropping with every time the hurricane hunters fly through the center. And your government is out there monitoring this thing with all its resources to be sure that the forecasts are the best they can be and we don't get surprised by some kind of deviation here. And we don't see any surprises except for the fact, I think, that people along the East Coast of the U.S. are not mentally prepared for the amount of energy that is coming at them and the issues that are undeveloped along the East Coast of the U.S. here coming up this week. All right, we'll get to that in a second. Let's look at what's going on there now. 130-mile-an-hour hurricane, as you mentioned, it has slowed down its forward speed. When storms begin to make a turn to the north around the corner, they're losing their push from the high pressure, and they haven't picked it up from the dip in the jet stream yet. They generally slow down, so that's all normal. And it's moving now into this very warm water, and so it is in an intensifying phase, even as it is in an expanding phase. When we look at the kind of photographic picture, the visible picture from the north, here we can see the eye wall right there. Hurricane hunters indicating that it is not closed. It's almost 30 miles across. Remember, when this thing peaked at Category 5, it was only about 5 miles across. So as the skater opens up the arms, the spinning slows down. But in this case, the storm grows significantly bigger. It's, I was going to say 3 times, but between 2 and 3 times as large as it was in diameter back when it was a Category 5. So a very, very large storm. We can enhance the clouds here because we don't have radar in this part of the ocean where we did out of Puerto Rico, but we can see these very strong bands here. These are the ones that got the Virgin Islands. And then as the storm goes this way, then the bands are going to be pulled through the islands here. So Turks and Caicos most immediately, Southeast Bahamas here coming up. So what the Hurricane Center does is they provide us with an area that they say in that area we could have tropical storm force winds. Not the entire area, but that's where we need to be ready in terms of a diameter around the storm. So a couple things to notice here. First of all, this is the tropical storm force, 40 miles per hour or higher, the yellow here. And notice it involves the Turks and Caicos islands here. And the southeastern Bahamas are right behind it. These are the southeastern Bahamas right over here, actually. Turks and Caicos, there's this group of islands right there. And then the central Bahamas are under a tropical storm watch. They could get them. So right now it looks like they might just miss, so they just have a possibility for them. Then looking at these other colors, these are where the hurricane force gusts are, and these are the hurricane force sustained winds. All these areas are growing in size, and they're going to continue to grow in size as we go forward through the day today and the day tomorrow, and probably even, as a matter of fact, on Wednesday, it'll continue to grow. So here we go forward, and you can see the Hurricane Center is thinking that today the storm will peak in intensity, and then it grows and the energy spreads out. So it's still a formidable Category 3 hurricane. You can see how close it's forecast to come to the central Bahamas, but then pulling away from the northern Bahamas. So no alerts there right now at this time. All right, let's look at the situation here for the U.S. and potentially for Bermuda. All indications are the center of this, the worst of this in terms of wind, is going to go right up the chute there between North Carolina and Bermuda. So the forecasts have been fantastic on this, and we continue with that same forecast. You see slow diminishing. There's the 120, and then by late Wednesday, 115, 110, and then 100 here as the upper level winds become more hostile. But as this storm moves north, it's going to get bigger and bigger. And as we saw with Hurricane Katrina, for example, I hate to bring up Katrina, but Katrina was a Category 5, was a Category 3 when it came ashore, but it had expanded and produced that tremendous storm surge. So big storms put tremendous energy into the water. So if you think about it, here's the storm here. Where's the energy going with the wind going that way? It's going toward the east coast of the U.S. as the storm comes north. And of course, we'll look at that in detail here. All right, so here's the idea. As it moves north, there are the winds, and everything stays offshore with the possible exception here. You can see Cape Hatteras here might get these winds if the storm just tracks a little bit farther to the left. Those yellows would be over Cape Hatteras. But I don't think the wind is going to be the issue here. It's the water that's going to be the issue. Here's our confidence. We have high confidence that this is what's going to happen. That's when it comes closest there Thursday morning and then shoots on offshore. So high confidence in this cone that the worst stays offshore. But here's the issue. Here are the waves out in the ocean, and this is the peak of it here. This is like when there's a peak and a trough in the ocean like that. That's that height. And look at these heights up here in the 30s and even some over 36 feet out there. All right, so let's go forward in time here and see what happens. Here we are Tuesday. You can see starting to get pressure from the storm on the water against the coast. And this is going to make giant waves. We're going to see huge waves crashing on the coast, eroding the coast. You'll see escarpments is where the beach, has a big cliff in it. Dunes will be threatened here. I mean, this is a big deal, folks. This is from Palm Beach County north to Cape Hatteras. This is Wednesday morning, starting north of Cape Hatteras on Wednesday. But it's when the storm gets north here. This is Thursday morning. And now we have the biggest pressure on Cape Hatteras. This is why they've evacuated there, because this water may very well challenge the roads there and also all the inlets there. Very, very dangerous for boating. Moving north, now we're talking about southern New England, Long Island, all of the beaches there from the Hamptons to Fire Island, all the way down to the Rockaways, Jersey Shore, Delmarva. Tremendous wave energy coming in here, eroding wave energy. And this is on Thursday. High tide Thursday comes early evening. That may be a very bad high tide. And then it moves away. Still some pressure on those beaches Friday, but it should be getting better on Friday and calming down by the weekend, although I think you'll still feel energy in the water over the weekend. So this is, I don't think folks appreciate the amount of energy coming toward those beaches and coastal communities here this weekend, guys. This is, it's a different thing than having a big hurricane coming right at you, and you kind of have a sense of what that means, and storm surge coming in, pushed directly in by the storm, as opposed to energy coming out of the storm in long swells. So the period of the swell was very long. So you get this surge of energy and huge waves and another surge coming behind it. And those initial waves don't have time really to back off completely. And this force of the water will be extremely, extremely dangerous for beachgoers and boaters. I imagine they'll be closing the beaches all up and down the East Coast as this energy comes on in. Guys?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I think closing the beaches altogether, just because I think it's dangerous for one, people trying to get in, but then also even for the lifeguards to try to get out there and try to rescue people. So it'll scrape the eastern seaboard, maybe prolonged impacts for some, and we'll be following it all along the way. We'll be checking in with you as well. Brian, Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross joining us. Thanks, Brian.
WUSA now.
I just wanted to say how far we've come as human beings and how people still want to eat their cake and have it too, which you can't, but they want to. That's anybody under the spell of mysticism that rejects some elements of science or most elements of science, but still retains others, disparages doctors and medical professionals, disparages developers of different drugs, disparages creators of airplanes and autonomous vehicles and all these different things that say, oh, you're playing God, I can't believe this is and the Luddites, they're against technology, but they're still using technology at the same time. Say one thing out the side of their mouth and say another out the other side. It amazes me, but I just am in awe of the fact that we have meteorologists that can explain that, you know, when you hear thunder, that's not God moving furniture around. That's one air pressure sliding against another air pressure, of one lower and one higher. Like the rain, the reason why rain is because clouds carry tons and tons of water. And once they get to a point where they break, that's when rain starts. Like, this is science. That's the beautiful part about this. This isn't, oh, these are God's tears, or, you know, they call it Uranus's tears. That's another mythology, not Christian mythology, but Greek mythology. His tears for being, I think, castrated or something like that. I was into Greek mythology for a spell. Rick James says, I don't know how I feel about it. I always thought meteorologists studied meteorites. Well, that's true. Meteorologists do study meteorites. Any atmospheric phenomena, you can be called a meteorologist. When I was growing up, they said that rain was Mother Nature on her period. Wow. Whew. I wonder why it's clear, though. It's not red. But anyway. But no, I just love that fact. I love the fact that there's a science to this. They're not like the people that do believe in God and that subscribe to whatever mystical, you know, system or faith that they have to take on some level of science. It's like a mixture. It's like I said, they want to eat their cake. That's their faith in Jesus and God and Allah and Buddha and so many more Hindu religions. All that is the same. Okay, they want to have their cake and eat it. They want to eat their cake, but they want to have science. They want to have reason. They want to have thought. They want to have common sense. They want to have reality. They want to have existence. And that's, you know, having their cake. That's them having the cake. The cake is made. It's got their name on it. It says happy birthday. You have your cake. But what the thing is, they want to eat the cake and say, you know, I should have this cake too. You can't. You can't have both. You need to have either or. You either eat your cake or you have your cake. You can have your cake and just save it in the freezer for years and years and just say, I have my cake, and not eat it. Rick James says, I want to eat that cake. But no, I'm serious. Meteorologists and other scientists related to the field of studying atmospheric phenomena, that is extraordinary. That is one of the best elements of science, because they're explaining. They're not saying, well, God is angry at us, so he's sending Erin down to wipe us off, you know, wipe on certain areas in the Atlantic, you know, to create more waves and, you know, power outages possibly, or just high winds and rain and everything. It's God punishing us. It's like Dick Gregory's line, you know, about the woman, the African woman scorned, you know, from off the coast of Africa comes hurricanes. I mean, it sounds cute. It sounds very storybook like. You know, you want to dive into that, but the fact is that, you know, science will rule all the time, because science is like, you know, the various sciences: astronomy, chemistry, chemistry, medicine, physics, astronomy, all oceanography, all these different things. And they are the trees, Ayn Rand said. Ayn Rand said they are the trees in the forest. And the soil is philosophy. You can't have trees without philosophy. You can't have science without philosophy. Reason, individualism, and capitalism. That's the three goals that we should always pursue in our lives. And that's what meteorologists are doing. They're providing reason. They have a purpose. They're doing their jobs. And they, reason, individualism, and capitalism. They're selfish because they're, not allowing anyone to deter their minds. And capitalism because They're trading ideas, they're trading information and knowledge to paying customers and people that are, aware of whatever situation there is. And they're getting paid for it. So it's good. Okay, here we go. God did. You ain't Khaled. Okay, rock with me and saying you do know science is based on religion, right? Please enlighten me. Show me how science is based on religion. The Catholic Church created the universities to study science. The irony is that you're exactly right. There was a philosopher named Thomas Aquinas. His whole role was I think he was a saint. I think it was Saint Thomas Aquinas. But I may be wrong. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, he had in his mind that he wanted to show that there was a God. He wanted to prove that a God existed, and you can't. There's no God. Rob with me says, "I'm no fool." Who called you a fool? I didn't call you a fool. But yeah. So the universities were a system. Well, even before the Catholic Church, there was lyceums, or lycea. I think I don't know if that's pronounced properly, but there were different places where students would gather to learn and understand the workings of the natural world, and it just expanded from there. So we have, nowadays we have thousands of universities all over the world, probably like 5,000 to 10,000, maybe even more. I know there's like 1,200 to 1,300 universities in the United States alone. But some people graduate and be still stupid, so you gotta be careful. But anyway, I was saying how reason is the main driver of science. Everybody says, "Oh, science." Nobody or hardly anybody says reason. They said, "Do you have a reason for what, or a reason why, or something?" No, reason, the faculty that identifies and integrates the materials provided by man's senses. Other words, your capacity to think. That's what reason is. I mean, that's the full definition I just provided for you is the exact definition in real time. But I think people might like, what? I'm lost. It's your capacity to think. That's essentially what reason is. It's your ability to process the things that come into your senses, and you integrate those, and you come out with a solution. You come out with an idea of the natural world around you. Okay, so I'm gonna play another video.
WUSA 9 Weather Impact is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan.
Right now, parts of the Caribbean dealing with the effects of Hurricane Erin. Take a look at that flooding. This is what we've seen in Puerto Rico. It is still churning in the Atlantic as a strong Category 4 storm. And while it isn't set to make landfall in the United States, it could cause some strong rip currents along the coast. In fact, parts of North Carolina along the Outer Banks have already declared a state of emergency. And Michaela, you say this might affect, the ocean where we swim, and then also a little bit of flooding.
Yeah, especially coastal flooding. So it's good to hear that the Carolinas are preparing, because they will be close enough that a few of those outer bands will pass through there. Yeah. But for our area, yes, rip currents will be much stronger as we head into the next couple of days, and increased dangerous surf. So if you are headed to the beaches, maybe one that we spend on the sand, could see some coastal flooding as well. Now, Erin has been a very strong hurricane, Allison. It went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in roughly 24 hours. It was a rapidly developing storm. Now, here's what I want you to know. This storm was the first major hurricane we've had this season. So it had all the energy that the ocean had to tap into. So that's one of the reasons why it was so strong so quickly, is nothing has come through to take away any of that warm water or turn the waters to make them a little bit cooler. So that's one of the reasons why we did see such a strong and quick intensification of Hurricane Erin. Winds right now 130 miles per hour, Category 4 storm, moving at about 13 miles per hour. So it has picked up pace just a little bit. As we look at our spaghetti plots, this is what I want you to see. We'll probably show this map quite a bit throughout hurricane season as things are starting to heat up. What I want you to know, when you see this spaghetti plot, each line that you see is what a different weather model thinks is going.
Hold up. That's the first time I ever heard that. It's the first time I ever heard that be called a spaghetti plot. I did not know that those were called spaghetti plots. I just learned something. Applaud me. I just learned something. I can see that. I was thinking they're like string plots. There's string forecasts or string models. They're called spaghetti plots. I guess that's a technical term. Spaghetti plots. It's kind of like astronomy. What are those things on the sun that look like spots? Oh, they're sunspots. Okay, got you. Astronomy keeps it simple. Keeps it simple. All right. Meteorology apparently does too.
Going to happen with the path of this storm. When we see the lines really close together, that gives us as forecasters more confidence in our forecast as to what's going to happen with this storm system. So right now we do have a pretty good idea that yes, Erin is going to take a pretty good curve back off into the Atlantic. When we look at the current cone of concern, right now it does look like it will maintain strength as a major hurricane at least through Wednesday before starting to relax a little bit more into that Category 2, Category 1 area. Here you're at.
Speaking of cool, that's exactly what we're looking at across the low country this morning. Temperatures are in the 60s and 70s.
The hell? Yeah, shut that down. I'll play it.
Clear skies out there. Beautiful start to the day. How about that for a sunrise? Calm winds too. 64 in Kingstree this morning, 66 Walterboro, 71 at the airport, 74 over on Folly. So a really nice and cool way to start out the day. We will be warm going into the afternoon, though, into the low 90s, but it looks like a beautiful day with a lot of sunshine, light and variable winds, even into the afternoon and evening. And overall, just partly cloudy skies. The chance for a shower or thunderstorm is limited. So with that being said, let's go straight to the tropics. A lot more to talk about there. Here's Erin. We're also watching an area that will develop just behind it. It has a medium chance of development, I should say. Tropical wave just came off the coast of Africa, and it's moving westward. So we're going to watch this one pretty closely. Still way out there in the Atlantic on the heels of Erin. But Erin really is the big story, of course. We have a major Category 4 hurricane out there. And every single time I show you the satellite loop, that eye just becomes more clear and more clear. It's a lot larger than it was because it underwent an eye wall replacement cycle. During that time, it briefly weakened, and now it's strengthening again, a Category 4, and it's ultimately going to pull off to the north here as we go throughout the course of the day today. You could not ask for a better track from this powerful and just major hurricane because it completely avoids a direct hit to any of the land, including the East Coast, including even Bermuda. This is just an ideal track, but it still brings us impacts indirectly because, well, we're going to see some large swell, which actually begins to show up later this afternoon and evening. So moderate risk for rip currents today, but it's a high risk Tuesday and Thursday as this swell really begins to peak across our low country beaches. Large surf, strong rip currents, hazards to boaters. Please be careful out there. The swell begins to fade on Friday, but it still even persists into the weekend just a little bit. So here's a look at the surf forecast, but I want to put major emphasis on this. Strong rip currents, dangerous surf, large surf. So if you're going to go out there, you have to go at your own risk and know your limits. I mean, Wednesday especially, this is the day where even I probably sit on the beach for this. That is an unbelievable forecast. I've never forecasted surf that high while I've been here at News 2. Last time I saw anything like this was probably Dorian in 2019. This is incredibly strong swell coming in from Erin. So really the best time to go out would be Tuesday morning during the calmer conditions, 3 to 6 feet though still. So that's still pretty strong, pretty serious waves there. Wednesday, that's when the swell peaks. That's when we're looking at 6 to 8 foot plus some Double overhead sets are possible, so up to 10 feet potentially at some spots. And then Thursday morning looks like a really good day to get out because the swell's fading. It's 2 to 4 feet, and the winds are northwesterly, which is the direction you want to see. So again, more favorable conditions ahead and after that swell. Just really, really, really significant swell, though, here in the low country. Low 90s next several days, and then we have a cold front at the end of the week, bringing us better chances for showers and thunderstorms. We're into the upper 80s during that time frame, with the beaches dropping into the mid 80s.
And we start off with a breaking news first alert that just came into the newsroom a few minutes ago. As Hurricane Erin continues its path, a state of emergency has been issued for Dare County, with mandatory evacuations in place for Hatteras Island. Officials say due to the threatening impacts, a state of emergency declaration has been issued for all areas of Dare County, effective now. A mandatory evacuation has been issued for Hatteras Island Zone A, which includes all of Hatteras Island, including the unincorporated villages of Rodanthe, Waves, Salvo, Avon, Buxton, Frisco, and Hatteras. All visitors in Hurricane Evacuation Zone A must evacuate beginning at 10 a.m. on Monday. All residents in Hurricane Evacuation Zone A must evacuate beginning at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Now, officials say those who are evacuating to areas north of Dare County are encouraged to travel westbound on Highway 64 to Interstate 95. For more information about Dare County's evacuation, you can head to our website, WITN.com.
Okay, that was just to the minute. That was a few little over an hour ago. For August 18th, 10 o'clock in the morning, where I am. Make sure you heed those warnings. You know, it's a state of emergency. I don't know if it's a state of emergency, but they're calling for evacuations. And just to keep clear of the riptides and the beaches and different things like that. And Hatteras, that's North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. That's Mr. Choice Star Terrain's current stomping grounds. Yeah, North Carolina. So, you know, be careful out there. Know what you're doing. What a great opportunity to flock. I don't know what flock. What do you mean flock? What are you talking about? What a great opportunity to flock. Did you mean something else? The YN's about to eat good when they evacuate. Why is that, Rob? You're speaking very cryptically. I don't know what you're talking about, to be honest. But that's okay. Hey, it's been over an hour. I appreciate everybody that came through. I just wanted to do a trending topic. It's Hurricane Erin. Big news. You know, as you can see, multiple meteorologists giving science and reason. Kick dough? What? I don't know what you're talking about. Science and reason will always reign today. Faith is weak. Faith is powerless in regard to reason and science. Faith is really mysticism and faith and reason and science. That's the difference. You want to preserve reason and science against mysticism and faith. And that's what meteorologists do in their work. They're letting people know that it's not about some God raining down, lightning, or, raining down, hail or snow, or, whatever the case may be, or like these large hurricanes and tropical storms. There's no God in that. You can't have faith. Not Boy George. That's not Boy George. That's George Harrison. George Michael. Excuse me. I'm messing up. George Michael. Not Boy George. I said George Harrison. That's a Beatle. George Michael. Excuse me. He's rocking power right now. So, hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I will see you sometime early in the morning tomorrow, East Coast Standard Time. Thank you again. Take care.